Hi, everyone. I wanted to remind you of a must read. This is a book that you have to have on your bookshelf. It is called The Necktie and the Jaguar by Greer. He is able to help you make important decisions, give you some guidance on which path to take, and you get to learn how he tapped into the wisdom and power of the unseen worlds for guidance and inspiration. I had the opportunity to interview him, and he was a lovely guest on the Path 11 podcast, episode 343. Check it out, listen to the podcast, go buy the book. Again, it's The Necktie and the Jaguar by Greer. To find out more information, go to his website, carlgreer.com. That's spelled CarlGreer.com. Hi, and thanks for tuning in to the Path 11 podcast. I am your host, April Hanna. At the Path 11 podcast, we are here trying to deliver leading-edge research on consciousness, healing, and metaphysics. And just like you, we are trying to answer the big questions about life. Who are we? Why are we here? And what is our purpose? We hope by listening to our podcast, it will make each day you live on Earth a little easier to understand. And now for today's podcast. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Throwback Thursdays on the Path 11 podcast. Our Thursday show is dedicated to bringing you exclusive clips from our television network called Path 11 TV. A little birdie told me you might not be subscribed yet, so I wanted to share some of the footage with you that I know you will find fascinating. But first, what is Path 11 TV? It is inspiring entertainment for the spiritually curious. So Mike and I have been dedicated to exploring the meaning of life through the lens of death since 2008. We believe our content will help you to better understand the human experience. Our network has filmed over 100 hours of teachings by experts on topics that are often ignored in our society, like death, UFOs, the paranormal, grieving, spirituality and sexuality, and much more. Our work is a continuous exploration of how we can all live a better life while honoring our inevitable death. Even though some of our footage dates back to 2008 when we first created our documentary trilogy, the Path series, the information that we have on Path 11 TV is timeless. We've created an amazing library for you that is filled with so much information that you don't want to miss. Now, let's get to our Throwback Thursday for this week. So I'm going to introduce you to a 10-minute clip that we recorded live at the 2019 UFO Fair in Pine Bush, New York. This was in May of 2019. Now, I'm not sure if you've ever heard of Travis Walton before. You might have, and might not even know that you have. He speaks about his abduction, his alien abduction, which was later turned into a feature film called Fire in the Sky. So pretty amazing. Now, before we get to the 10-minute clip, I also just want to give you a little bit of background of the other presenters that we filmed at this event, which is also on the Path 11 TV playlist under the UFO playlist that we have. So another famous story was from a man, Tom Reed, who was also there. He's been featured on Unsolved Mysteries and Ancient Aliens, and he talked about his alien account and provides photos of his experience during this presentation. The Tom Reed UFO incident became our nation's first UFO incident to be officially inducted into the United States as historically significant and true. This pioneering induction graced the front page of the Boston Globe, ABC News, and was just recently featured on a recent episode of Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix. Another speaker on this playlist is Mark D'Antonio, and he is a photo and video analysis for MUFON, which is Mutual UFO Network, as well as president for FX Models in Terryville, and he also appeared on the Discovery Channel's UFOs Over Earth, and he lectures at MUFON conferences around this country. So he provides a lot of information and research that he has found throughout the years. Another speaker, Peter Robbins, he speaks about the topic of UFOs and the abduction that had happened with his sister and later himself. Peter Robbins is an investigative writer. He's an author and lecturer on the topic of UFOs. and is best known for his books, articles, radio interviews, and conference talks. He has appeared on the History Channel's Britton Roswell Unsolved Mysteries, The O'Reilly Factor, The Real Roswell, Sci-Fi Channel's documentary, UFO Invasion at Rendlesham, as well as numerous other shows. He was also the associate producer of the award-winning documentary, Travis, The True Story of Travis Walton. So they clearly became friends after this. And I don't know if you guys have watched that, but that was pretty cool. So you should check that out. And then another speaker who was actually a guest on the Path 11 podcast, episode 178, is Cheryl Costa. So she's a native resident of upstate New York, near Syracuse, I believe. And she saw her first UFO at age 12. She's a military veteran. She is a retired information security professional from the aerospace industry. She's been a speaker at the International UFO Congress and at MUFON Symposium. And she has compiled some of the best and most intensive research of UFO information that you can imagine. So that is the UFO playlist right now on Path 11 TV. And now I'm going to share with you the 10-minute clip of Travis Walton's presentation that we recorded. And again, you can watch this full video at path11tv.com. So let's get to that.
I felt this numbing shock go through my body. I passed out almost immediately, but, working on equipment and, you'll sometimes get a jolt of electricity from the sparks and that sort of thing. I know what it feels like to get shocked, and that was kind of what it was. But I had a sort of a numbing effect at the same time, and I was unconscious at that point. Now in the movie, they really didn't like the idea that this event didn't last long enough for film. What if somebody dropped their popcorn for a minute and looked away? They wouldn't see it. So they really tried to milk that part with where the beam came on, held the actor for a while, kind of lifted him up, and then tossed him back. That's not the way it really happened. It was a blast that was so violent, it just threw me 15, 20 feet through the air to where there was no doubt in their minds that it had killed me. Steve said, it got him. He meant got him is like when you got your deer or whatever, he's dead now. So, from the get-go, when I would talk about what happened next when they panicked and took off, people would call them cowards and, criticize them for not being more heroic. But I see nothing wrong with what they did. That was the most sensible course of action at that point. There was no sense in getting somebody else killed to rescue a dead man, They took off. They said, Mike said that, the guys were screaming at him, go, 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 go. And he said he drove like a maniac. He nearly wrecked the truck, crashing into stuff, getting out of there. They got up the way, he said, and they stopped, and they just were having a panic session, screaming at each other and trying to figure out what to do. They were thinking about building a fire, just as a false security, I would think. That didn't make any sense. But they stopped that when they saw a group of deer hunters go by out on the road. It was deer hunting season, and we heard some shooting in the distance during the day. And that was one of the things that we thought about was a possible explanation for the glow as we approached this thing. Could that be deer hunters over there? But when they saw the deer hunters, they tried to go catch them. They had the idea nobody brought any guns to work, so they thought they would go get these deer hunters with their weapons and get them to go back. Because already then, they were thinking we got to go back and make sure that there's not something we can do for him. They try to help him. So they took off. and the rim road was a much smoother, better road. This is where this little logging trail connected to. So when they got to where the deer hunters were, it was smoother running, so they could, drive pretty fast, but they were still unable to catch up with the hunters. And in the movie, when Mike pulls over and says, "Look, we got to go back," they argued about it. The crew were saying, "No way, let's just go get help," and that's true. That's really what happened, according to the guys I talked to. But the fear. They were there in the movie. They changed the whole thing where when Mike said, "Look, this truck is going back. Anybody who doesn't want to go can just get out, wait here, and we'll come and get you on our way back." When Mike said that, nobody volunteered to get out and wait alone in the dark. That was just a kind of an unlikely scenario. Mike made the offer, but nobody took him up on it. So they all elected to stay in the truck and go back, even though they kept arguing about it, about whether they should do such a thing. So they said on their way back, it was that they could see it, this thing rise up and take off towards the northeast. Now, later on, when we were able to examine the sheriff's files on this, there were a number of hunters, fishermen, recreationists in the area who had seen the same thing when it left. So Kenny was saying that he wasn't so fearful that aliens would return, but how horrific it was going to be to see my body. Was this going to be something burned up, charred, blown apart, that sort of thing. And the closer they got. Now, in the movie, they make it look like they had a great deal of trouble locating the spot where they had seen it. That's not the case. The clearing was obvious, and when Mike had taken off, he had just revved that truck up and popped the clutch out, and the tires had spun a hole in the road. So it was pretty obvious where they had been. So they stopped there. They said they all got out. They only had one flashlight. So, all 6 of these guys are huddled around one flashlight. They said they were went to the spot where my body had fallen, and no Travis there. And they said they kept calling and no response. John said that when I had been hit by that energy, that my body had fallen like a sack of meat. That was his terminology. Like there wasn't a bone in my body. So it was pretty violent, according to what they were describing. So they did a search of the area, the perimeter of the clearing, and at one point, Kenny said that Mike fell to his knees and started crying, and he helped him up, and I think Mike did a pretty damn good job of getting a grip on himself and kind of taking charge at that point. He realized, that this was extremely serious, and he was going to have to get everybody through this. So they decided to get back in the truck and then head back to town, and they started arguing about whether to report it. Alan, the bad boy in the group, said, "No, let's not report this to the authorities. We'll just get some friends, people with guns, and we'll bring them out. And if we can't find him, then we'll go see the sheriff." But the others said, "Well, look, if Travis isn't found, and we don't go report it to the sheriff, how's that going to look, So as soon as they got into town, Kenny, he was the one who was sitting next to me in the front. He's the one who called in to the sheriff. I guess the operator, I'm just guessing, I wasn't there, but the operator connected him to the local county sheriff deputy. That would have been Chuck Ellison. And he came right over, and he describes his impression of the group at that time. Some of the men were still crying, but it was clear something really terrible had happened. But when they start off their description, well, one of our crew is missing. We don't know what happened to him. He might be dead. The lawmen, their ears pricked up, and that was the beginning, apparently, of their suspicion that there had probably been some kind of a fight, that I was murdered, and they had decided to cover it up rather than, make up some other story to explain my disappearance. In the movie, when they reported it to the sheriff said, well, we'll have to go go check it out in the morning. In real life, they really did go back out there. Half the crew went with the sheriff. The sheriff and his second in command had joined them, so they had, 3 lawmen plus, Mike and a couple of the others went to the site where it happened that night, did another search.
Okay, I know you want more, and if you want more, you got to head on over to Path 11 TV to get the rest of this story. One of the things that I absolutely loved about sitting there, filming this, listening to his story, is I just love getting the real account, right? I mean, if you watched the fire in the sky, and then you sit and listen to what really happened, that's what I think is so cool. And, I love the fact that Travis kind of says, well, Hollywood needed to embellish this, but to actually watch that, and then I would highly recommend to watch the documentary that had recently come out that Peter Robbins helped to produce. Again, that's Travis, the True Story of Travis Walton. It's really cool to just kind of like put 2 and 2 together. So this story goes on. It was quite a lecture. When you're watching it on Path 11 TV, he has a lot of visuals that he brought with him as well to give you an idea of what he was experiencing. So I do hope that you will head on over and subscribe for your free trial today. So we give you guys 7 days for free. Head on over, hit the UFO playlist. You'll be able to see all of the speakers that we talked about. And if you like what you see and want some more, then go ahead and subscribe. We give you 2 choices. You can either choose a monthly subscription or an annual subscription. And the annual subscription, of course, gives you more bang for your buck. It's $99 for a year. There's no rush to watch any of the stuff. I mean, like I said, we have over 100 hours of footage on here, and the yearly or annual membership just gives you a lot of extra time to be able to sit and watch at your leisure. Monthly, you kind of want to really figure out, pick and choose what you want to watch because you only have 30 days to do it. So start your free trial today, path11tv.com, and we are going to be bringing more clips like this to you for Throwback Thursday. Thanks for listening. Take care, everyone.
Thanks so much for tuning in to today's show. If you haven't already, please subscribe and rate and review the Path 11 podcast in Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Also, this podcast is made possible by our sponsor, Path 11 TV. Visit path11tv.com to start a 7-day free trial and start streaming over 100 hours of exclusive video content on consciousness, healing, and life after death. That's path11tv.com, and be sure to use coupon code PODCAST30 to take 30% off your annual membership. Start satisfying your spiritual curiosity with a membership to Path 11 TV today. Bye for now.